Okay, looks like we're good to go on the recording.
We are live and ready when you are, Mr. Mayor.
All right, we'll go ahead and call tonight's meeting to order. This is a meeting of the Seldovia City Council, Monday, June 13th. The time is 6:02 p.m. And we'll go ahead and do roll call. Sweat,
Here.
Rojas,
Here.
Kennedy. Oh, he's going to be joining us late. Sorry, Swick,
Here.
Peyton,
Here.
Nathan.
Here.
Okay, we have 5 out of 6 currently present here, so we do have a quorum. And let's see, Heidi or Rachel, if one of you will lead us off in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Excused absences at the moment, we have Kennedy, who will be joining us late. Let's see, item D, agenda approval. We'll go and look for a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Rojas to approve tonight's agenda, second by Sweat. Any further discussion on the agenda before we vote? Okay, we'll go ahead and vote on tonight's agenda. All those in favor, Sweat,
Aye.
Rojas,
Aye.
Swick,
Aye.
Peyton,
Aye.
Nathan.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes with 5 in the affirmative. Let's see, item E, consent agenda. All items under the consent agenda are approved with a single motion, no discussion, and 1 vote. A council member may request to move any item for discussion and a separate vote. Items removed from the consent agenda will be placed under new business. Tonight's consent agenda, item 1 is the approval of minutes for the special meeting of May 17th, 2022, found on page 5. Minutes of the regular meeting, May 23rd, 2022, found on page 9. And minutes of the special meeting, May 25th, 2022, found on page 14. Let's see, minutes of the regular meeting, May 9th, 2022, will be provided at the 6/27/22 meeting. Item E2, the second part of the consent agenda consists of ordinance introduction, and this is ordinance 22-15. An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Seldovia, Alaska, amending Seldovia Municipal Code 2.48.020 definitions, 2.48.010 declaration of public policy, 2.48.060 unlawful practices in the sale or rental of real property, 2.48.070 unlawful financing practices designated, 2.48.080 unlawful employment practices designated, 2.48.090 unlawful practices in places of public accommodation, 2.48.100 unlawful practices in educational institutions, and 2.48.110 unlawful practices by the municipality of Seldovia by including sexual orientation and gender expression and identity. The recommended public hearing will be June 27th. And this is found on page 16 of your packet. Okay, that is the consent agenda for this evening. And just to note for the record, Councilmember Kennedy is now present and will be voting. So I read off the items of the consent agenda. Does any member wish to remove any item for separate discussion at this time? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and I'll look for a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
Make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda by Sweat, second by Rojas. Any further discussion on the consent agenda before we vote? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, Sweat,
Aye.
Rojas,
Aye.
Kennedy,
Aye.
Swick,
Aye.
Peyton,
Aye.
Nathan.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 6-0 on tonight's consent agenda. Item F, mayoral proclamations, none. Item G, public presentation prior notice. Each presenter has up to 10 minutes. We do have a presentation tonight of the SRSA FY23 budget by Lisa Stanish, and she is the SOC facility coordinator. Good evening, Lisa.
Hello, Mr. Mayor. Is that right? You can hear me?
Yep, I got you.
Okie doke. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. So I did a little presentation for the board. So what you're looking at right here is consists of the entire SRSA service area. So it's the Seldovia recreational service area, everything inside of the red lines, which is a pretty large piece of property. So there is a 0.75 mil rate of the SRSA, and the SRSA funds fund the Sea Otter Community Center, which is up on the school campus, and also works with the city of Seldovia to develop additional recreation. Well, sorry, let me back up. The community center provides recreation for the service area, and we are working with the city to continue to develop other recreational assets within the service area. So I'll just go ahead and read this. The SRSA and the city of Seldovia have developed a partnership to allow the SRSA access to city properties for events and programs free of charge. In turn, the SRSA has committed to assisting the city in supporting local trails and recreational spaces by organizing volunteers and schedules to better serve the service area citizens on these properties. Some examples of the support are sponsoring and facilitating sports tournaments such as volleyball at Outside Beach or disc golf at the RV park, creating better public access to the gazebo at Lake Susan, and maintaining the ice rink in the winter on the lake. With this public-public partnership, we strive to provide a greater range of recreational opportunities to the SRSA community. So this is a really great piece in this presentation. This was the presentation that I gave to the Kenai Peninsula Borough. They have all of the service areas do a presentation every year, and it's all mostly very cut and dry budgets and numbers, and not my scene. So I like to throw in like what we actually spend our money on through our mill rate. And in developing this, I realized how many partnerships it takes in Seldovia to make the service area and the SOC happen, which I find is a really neat, integral part of being in Seldovia, is partnerships with the school, with the Arts Council, with the city, and it makes everything work a lot nicer. So, what we do. The community center works to support the residents in many ways with programs such as Mama Social, Yarn Hour, and after school programming. So these, of course, were, presentation was from when school was still in session. So we've done a bit of a shift. You haven't seen a lot of action up at the SOC the last couple of months because staff went on vacation. I went on vacation, and I was out for about 4 weeks. So we're back in action, and we are starting to look at our summer schedule. I'll put that up after this presentation, but starting to integrate what we do in the summertime, which it's really hard to get people to come into the SOC during the summertime. It's too beautiful out, and who wants to go into a building? So we work on getting more recreational things happening in the summertime, getting people outside. The disc golf is set up at the field. 3 days a week, we're going to do evening sports programs. So it'll go from t-ball with the little kids to softball for the adults, badminton to volleyball if people show up, and disc golf to even a frisbee ultimate frisbee game if we get enough people. So just trying to build up some outdoor recreation. And another piece of the city partnership in this is that we hope to do a a disc golf tournament at the end of June out at the RV park. So we'll take 5 of our disc golf goals out there and all of our discs and do a tournament out at the RV park if I get that approved through the council. And then at the end of July, we'll do another event out at the beach and we'll do a volleyball tournament. So that'll be the last Friday in July and the last Friday in June for the RV park. So just more partnerships of being able to get more things happening in town. So this is just an example of a favorite activity in partnership with Susan B. English School. Using only cardboard and duct tape, I asked the kids to make a boat. So it took 3 weeks and they came over after school 1 day a week and they all worked together really hard. You know, a lot of them asked questions like, can I use staples? Can I, can we put foam inside of it? Like everybody had to try to come up and get little tips and try to make them better. But they did great. I said, no, it's just cardboard and just duct tape. Some of them duct taped the entire bottom of the boat. So they were learning about how things float. And then we took them to the pool. So that's another great partnership, is that the SOC works with the pool to be able to provide swimming for the kids. And then, this great activity, which everybody loved. And then, if you had, how do I get sound without it? No? Okay, that's okay. They're just screaming and yelling.
Right.
Yeah.
Actually staying pretty dry.
Yeah, they had a great time. And, so everybody got to put their boats in. The ones that didn't disintegrate right away were able to get into the race. They had a blast. And we've done this a couple of times with the kids, and it's always a really fun project. Some of the other winter activities that we do is Avalanche Awareness is really important in our community. We have a lot of outdoor enthusiasts. This was right before Rachel got snowed in a big shovel of snow in her face. So learning how to do the run, walk, crawl scenario. So I buried beacons out in the field in the snow. I had one transceiver with us, and as we picked up transceivers, we'd have more people searching for other bodies out in the field. And then the photograph is a picture of a backpack that has a transceiver inside of it that we buried really deep in the snow, so you could learn probing techniques and proper shoveling, which you wouldn't think is a really big deal, but if you shovel wrong, you'll rebury your person depending on how deep they are. So all really great skills that people should have who are out in the mountains in Seldovia. And this was also in partnership with SVT because they have 5 beacons, shovels, and probes that are available to community members at no cost. You can just get with somebody at SVT who's in it used to be Alex Chartier's position. So anybody in the safety position, and ask them to check you out a shovel, a beacon, and a probe, and you can head out safely into the mountains. So I think that's a really great program, and something a lot of people don't realize that those are available in town. So another partnership that we rely on to provide a variety of opportunities is with the Seldovia Arts Council. Throughout the winter, the Arts Council puts on free concert series through the SOC. We'll have the Earth Day Film Festival is one that is always occurring at the community center. And then we had a few photo series this year with a couple of different presenters. And so those are all things that were free of charge and performed or put on at the community center. So this one has been very awesome to see that the SOC has a 5-year memorandum of agreement with the school district to provide open studio time in the studio again. So right now we have 3 days a week where the kids are coming in. It's one group of students, 6 kids at a time. 2 different age groups. Yeah. Sorry, I'm still on my vacation brain. It's coming back. So 3 days a week, the students, 2 different groups of students go through and are working with our instructor, Jennifer Cameron, who used to be a art professor at the University of Fairbanks and University of Alaska Fairbanks. And she's doing 6 weeks blocks with the kids. And the 6 weeks is so that the kids can go through different steps through the programming and be able to build something, have it fired, glaze it, have it fired, and go home with a full project at the end of the 6 weeks. And then we'll do another set of 6 weeks with a different group of kids. So right now it's not a walk-in basis like the pottery studio used to be. Hopefully for the adults, we can get there. We're going to move some tables up into the mezzanine. Right now we're just 6 people at a time in the studio because it is a small space. And we do still want to be a little, aware of social distancing. But once we can get some places up, some tables up in the mezzanine and a wheel up there, we'll open up for 6 more adults, and adults can work up in the mezzanine area. We don't want the kids to work up there because walking up and down with clay is kind of dangerous, but it's been a great success. Everybody's really happy to have the ceramic studio back open again. And that's been really great. So yeah, the brick and mortar, the numbers, this is not always my favorite part, but because numbers don't like my brain. So FY22, our original budget, we received $65,000. It's projected to go down just a little bit in FY23. All of these are the different line items of services and the nuts and bolts of what we need to maintain the operation of the community center, and then kind of how we allocate that fund out. Does anybody have any questions on that? It's kind of small for you guys to see, but
Any questions from anyone on council?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah, Lisa, great presentation. Are you still required to set aside X amount of money for the capital projects? Is that money still?
Yeah, we do. And we do have a large fund balance. So on this slide, it talks about the fund balance itself. And at this time, look at it. Oh, sorry. I went the wrong direction. So at this time, our fund balance is about $111,000. So it's a very large fund balance, and that's something that we need to figure out how to pay out in the future. And we do have when we took a survey through the community of Seldovia over the last 2 years, and there were a lot of great things that came in of like, what can we do with this large fund balance? We definitely need to hold on to, $30,000 to $50,000 just in case there's, a roof repair or some catastrophe with the building, and we need to be able to quickly get back on our feet. But with the surplus in there, we've got somewhere between $60,000 and $70,000 that we can wiggle with, and we're hoping to find a great project. And in line with the mission of the CIRSA to provide recreational assets for the community. There were a lot of really great ideas, such as bringing electricity to the RV park, working on the pavilion to make that a better access for the winter time at this Lake Susan. That one came up, finishing the boardwalk that is out here on Main Street. That it just goes along here, and not the boardwalk on the water side. That's a contentious issue. Just the wooden boardwalk sidewalk that along Seldovia. That one came up. And the overwhelming one that people discussed was to bring the Susan B. English Sport Court back up to a better functioning facility. Right now, There's cracks in the concrete, so it's hard to play tennis without the ball flying somewhere. The tennis nets you can't even string them up anymore because the net posts don't hold the nets up anymore. We did get the basketball hoops replaced, but we want to get 2 middle school height basketball hoops and place them on the other 2 power poles that are there, so the younger kids can continue to play basketball throughout. There used to be an entire rebound board on the backside of the court, and that was removed because it was falling apart and it was never replaced. So we'd like to replace that for 1 court, not the entire backboard, because the sock was built then, and now that would block all of our windows. But for one court, have the rebound board, and then paint, resurface the whole grounds with a 2-inch lift of concrete. Put some benches out there. So it's a really big project. It did go on the borough's capital funds project list that was sent to the state. Unfortunately, none of those projects were accepted by the state, so we won't be seeing any state funding from that. But it's out there that this is what a desire of the community, and it's a desire of the SURSA that we would like to upgrade that. And if we can take it apart in bits and pieces and maybe just start with the 2-inch lift and get the surface back together, and then add, the backboards and paint the lines and get new posts, and, pick away at the project as we can with that fund balance. And that's sort of the trajectory that we're on at this time. So, and I do have a memorandum of agreement signed with the school district that they are aware we want to do the project and fund the project. And of course they're happy because we want to fund it. So, so that's the fund balance. Did that answer your question, Vivian?
Yes, thank you very much.
Does anyone else have questions?
Mr. Mayor, it looks like we have a comment from a member of the public.
Okay, sounds good.
Yes, you mentioned they was thinking about putting a lift on the concrete. Some years they used that for ice skating, but this concrete floor slopes 6 inches across it. I was going to say, if they're going to be putting a lift on, it might be nice to equalize that 6 inches so you could use it as a skating ring in the wintertime.
That's a good suggestion. And it's something we've actually considered buying. You can buy a skatable floor. And it's inline skates. It's not ice skates, but then you wouldn't have to be dealing with the freeze and thaw. There's a lot of issues with that, with the trees and everything around that falls down into the flooring. But yeah, if we wanted, we could see if the school district would be willing to make an ice rink out of it. That's a liability issue itself, but there are rinks in other schools, so it's not it's not a definite no.
And then at one time, the city plowed the playfield before it was a playfield in the wintertime and burned up the snow so we could flood it for ice skating out in the playfield.
That didn't kill the grass?
That was before there was grass.
Okay. I think that would kill the grass.
As long as I got the mic here. You may not be aware of the original history of the club up there. It used to be the Boys and Girls Club, and when they ran out of funding, the borough had a meeting here as to how can we finance and keep the building in existing. Your tax that you pay is a result of a comment that I made at that meeting. So if you're complaining about your tax for the facilities, I was the one that brought the subject up.
Well, we thank you for that.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, one point.
Yeah, go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah, I just want to thank Lisa for coming forward and putting on a great presentation. Because just like Hugh said, that 0.75 mill rate, you can see what it does for our community and how it supports the vast groups of people. And so I applaud you, Lisa, for coming forward tonight and sharing your information, because not everybody knows where that 0.75 mill rate goes and what it does for the community. So I thank you for coming in tonight. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Vivian. Any other final comments from anyone from council or anyone from the public?
Mr. Mayor.
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say the same thing. Thank you, Lisa, for coming. There's a lot of good information that I'd kind of forgotten about. So thanks.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Lisa. We appreciate your presentation and thanks for going over the budget and appreciate it. Okay, we'll move on to item H, public presentation for items not on the agenda. And do we have anyone from the public that wishes to speak for items not on the agenda?
I'm not seeing any hands raised at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Move down to item I, committee and advisory board reports. I don't believe we have any this evening. Item J, administrative reports, none. Item K, public hearings. K1, ordinance 22-14, an ordinance of the city council of the city of Seldovia, Alaska, amending Seldovia Municipal Code, chapter 5.08, public soliciting and vending, and title 18, section 18.20.015, parenthesis 110. Recommended public hearing is June 13th, which is tonight. And this will be found on page 35 of your packet. And looks like Heidi, if you want to take this one.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this was discussed at a previous meeting. Per that discussion, this ordinance amending Seldovia Municipal Code 5.08 public soliciting and vending includes more definitions. It adds language pertaining to the application process, revocation, expiration, state laws are applicable, and language for the penalty. It also moves the designated area for vending from the lot between the harbor master's office and Lollipop Park to Seldovia Gateway Pavilion, and adds language limiting the vending space for vendors to a 10 by 10 area per individual, prohibits licensed vehicles or trailers, and adds a 90-day season limit for the vending application. Language for the $100 application was removed from the code and was already included in the Seldovia fee schedule, which passed at a previous meeting. And should there be a larger vendor in the future, they can still negotiate with the city for use of city property, and further policies and regulations can also be provided by resolution by council in the future if needed.
Okay, thank you, Heidi. All right, we'll go ahead and open it up for council discussion. Anyone care to make an opening comment or questions or?
I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, go ahead, Jennifer.
The daily rate and the seasonal rate, that's in the budget we just approved, or the fee schedule we just approved?
Correct.
Okay. It's at the 15 and the 100.
I believe so, yes.
Mr. Mayor, if I may ask,
Yeah, go ahead, Vivian.
I'm a little bit confused. I see the on page 39, the vending permit application, and then following it is the vending license application for 2019. Or is the 2019 vending license application obsolete, or the numbers, the prices on it, is that old information? I'm confused.
Thank you. Yeah, yes, that is old. I just put that in there to show the model that was being previously used, which was not following the code as it stated, because it was supposed to be $100 application. So old application, I just wanted you to see that so you could see what the differences were with the new application.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, thank you, Vivian. Thanks for clarifying that. Okay, I'll just chime in real quick. Yeah, it looks like, I mean, we did discuss this. There was quite a bit of cleanup as you go through this. Obviously, a fair amount of housekeeping, pretty straightforward on most of it. I think the wishes were codified in the area near Lollipop Park there to make sure that that was meant for very, very small vendors, if you will. Kind of more the day-to-day type stuff, the tent style, and then anything a little more substantial would have to be permitted and down at a different area. So we basically have a number of opportunities for folks that want to come over and do either short time or long-term vending. So good work on getting this cleaned up, and I'm in full support. Anyone else before we go to the public?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, go ahead.
If you could just clarify, so the lot between Lollipop Park and the Harbor Master can still be used? Page 41. For what? Page 41.
It is no longer the designated vending area. However, anybody who's going to vend on city property, on any city property, does need to have a vending license. So there's still opportunities for people to vend on city property at other locations, but the designated area is now the row beside the Gateway
Okay,
Pavilion.
that's what I thought. Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, Heidi, anyone from the public?
I'm not seeing any hands raised at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we'll go and bring it back to council for final action this evening.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we adopt ordinance 22-14.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second,
Okay, we have a motion by Rojas to adopt ordinance 22-14, second by Sweat. Any further discussion before we vote? Okay, all those in favor, Sweat,
aye.
Rojas,
Aye.
Kennedy,
Aye.
Swick,
Aye.
Peyton,
Aye.
Nathan.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes unanimously on ordinance 22-14. It is approved. Item L, unfinished business, none. Item M, new business. Item M1, discussion on ordinance 84-19 regarding the Seldovia Arts Council and insurance for events. This will be found on page 43 of your packet, and the city manager will take it away on this one.
Thank you, Mayor. So I just wanted to bring before the council the what feels like a historic ordinance that the city adopted back in 84, 85 regarding the establishment of the Arts Council. And the reason why this is coming before you tonight is because while the Arts Council does act as if it is its own separate organization, it is indeed a part of the city. And so anything that the Arts Council does as a result of them being part of the city technically falls on us. So if there was a liability or an incident, risk, debt, because this ordinance says that it's a Arts Council of the city, technically we would pick up any risk involved with their activities. The ordinance itself, though, from 1984 states that the Seldovia Arts Council shall hold the city harmless for any debts incurred by the Seldovia Arts Council, and then the board answers to the council when requested to provide an accurate accounting of any public monies provided to it by the city of Seldovia. So I'm bringing this before you tonight because I think we can clean up or update the Arts Council City of Seldovia relationship in such a way where it does identify that, yes, the Arts Council is a part of the city. Yes, our insurance covers what they do. Yes, if they do anything, that is something that falls, anything I should say that would come with risk or liability that would fall on the city. So the reason why this even came to my attention is because the city sponsors some of the Arts Council events, but the Arts Council wants to hold separate events. And so we've been asking them to get separate insurance for those events when technically they're underneath the city's umbrella. So I don't think that they need to actually be doing that. I don't even think the city can sponsor and partnership events with the Arts Council. But I think we need to update this ordinance in such a way where it reflects what actually is happening, and also just that the city, by having an arts council, does take on those liabilities. So I just wanted feedback from council before an updated ordinance comes before you for consideration. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. All right, we'll open it up for council discussion.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, go ahead, George.
does the Arts Council have their own insurance?
Through the mayor, no, I don't believe so, Councilmember Nathan. I know that they purchased separate insurance for COVID to protect their board members, and they have purchased insurance for events on city property. But no, I do not believe, and Councilmember Rojas, who's I believe still the vice president, she can confirm that for me, but I don't believe they have their own separate insurance.
I was just wondering how they can hold us harmless without some method for dealing with claims against them.
And so through the mayor, that's exactly what we're talking about, is technically that doesn't even need to be in there because this is an organization of the city. And so by us sponsoring an arts council, we're agreeing to the risks that come with that. So that would be double coverage, so to speak.
Then perhaps we should exercise a little more oversight then.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, yep, go ahead, Bobby.
Yeah, when I read this too, I couldn't quite understand what a couple of those statements meant, but I am in agreement. We need to update this and make it a little cleaner and yeah, so that everybody understands, what exactly is going on with the Arts Council and the city. So, thank you.
Thank you, Bobby. Yep,
Mr. Mayor.
go ahead. Go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah, to clarify, I think just this past year, the Art Council purchased insurance for board members to be a kind of liability insurance just to protect them. But I agree, this from 1984, this document, the ordinance needs to be cleaned up. There's always been a question about insurance and who's covering what. And I've always felt that, because it was not, it was clear with the ordinance, but it wasn't clear about the Art Council getting insurance to cover events that they're putting on. But if you read that ordinance of 1984, it really puts that umbrella is really under the city, which was pretty advantageous for the Art Council back in 1984 to go under the umbrella of the city of Seldovia and the expense of covering insurance. So yes, it definitely needs to be cleaned up. So I applaud you for bringing this forward. And the question has always come up, the same thing with the SOC, the CIRSA. What is a liability to the city that we need to be concerned about? And what is a financial liability that we're putting forward? I've always felt that both the CIRSA and the Art Council should be paying for any insurance that they use that the city has expenses for. But with the ordinance of 1984, it really says that no, it doesn't have to. So that's all I have to say. But the Art Council has been very blessed to have the city of Seldovia helping them out, working through these issues. But you're right, city manager, we've purchased insurance for different events just in case something happens. But it sounds like maybe all that falls underneath the city, which is a little bit intimidating. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Vivian. I have a question actually for Vivian. Do you know, so this has been over 40 plus years. Do you know if we're coming up on 40 years, do you know if there's ever been any kind of claim against the Arts Council for something that happened in an event where this would have been actually tried or put into play?
Not that I'm aware of. And really, it's, it used to be just the Art Council had the Art Council, the Solstice Music Festival, and a couple other events. Really in the last, I don't know, 10 years or more, has it really branched out into other events? But no, not to my knowledge.
Okay, and then just follow up, just kind of thinking through this. So like at for example, when you have the concert through the Arts Council for the music festival, and you have the concert up at the school, is there a separate agreement in place with the school then if something were to happen at that, say someone falls off the bleachers or something? So it's on school property, but it's an Arts Council function.
Yeah, in order for us to use the school, and Heidi, if you would chime in and help me out here, we actually get documentation of insurance from the city of Seldovia, saying that we have insurance. So the Kenai Peninsula Borough School District will allow us to be in their space. And Heidi, could you, or city manager, could you clean that up a little bit more of what I said?
No, that was absolutely correct. The city of Seldovia gets a certificate of coverage every year for events that happen on Susan B. English School property for the Seldovia Arts Council.
Okay, so then I think this goes right back to what George said too. I think, yeah, based on that, on the actions of that, and then the article in terms of holding the city council or the city of Seldovia harmless, I think that's counterintuitive to what's going on here in a real practical effect. So I would suggest that we probably have a run through of this by legal before it comes before council, just to make sure that everything's jiving. And then I think it can be fairly clean rather than us talk about it and then it go to legal. I think we have some sort of framework, make sure we've done a little bit of homework checked out by the city attorney and that they're in agreement with this exact scenario. And then we move it forward, and we should be able to do a pretty good cleanup and meet the intent of, what we're actually doing in today's real world.
Mayor Campbell.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
I agree. It should be updated for sure. But I'd like to know what the cost is to the city, based on the events and where it's at. And then maybe we could, and I agree with Mayor Campbell that we probably should talk to the attorney. I just would like to see it be updated and up front with everybody so that everybody knows where we're at, and times are different, so let's just make sure we have all the things in place that we need so that we're all protected. I support the programs. We just need to figure out who's going to pay it and how much it is.
And Mr. Mayor, if I could speak to that real quickly as well.
Yeah, you bet, Heidi.
I do believe I have it in email because I've had this discussion with AML-JIA a couple of times over the last couple of years, that to add these additional events doesn't actually cost the city additional money. It's the additional risk and liability.
Right.
So if something occurs at the event, that would. Right. So to cover it isn't going to necessarily going to cost you extra, but you are taking on the risk and liability.
What's it costing us today? I don't know that.
And I can respond to that through the mayor, Councilmember Kennedy. So the Councilmember Rojas brought up the SOC. So the SOC's different because it has an employee and it's a public facility versus the Arts Council. I know they're Zooming now, but I don't know where they met or what public facilities they use, but it's all covered by the city. Think of it like a city, you'll have an affordable housing committee or a lands committee, and all of those people are appointed to serve in that capacity. So they all fall under the city insurance. So it doesn't cost anything because we already have board volunteer employee insurance, and technically they're under the city.
Maybe you folks misunderstood what I was getting at. Is the double insurance is what bothers me. To me, it's almost like wasted money. The council's going out and covering special events. If it was all under one blanket,
Right.
Then that's what I'm getting at. And
Right.
we need to do a review of it and get it updated. I'm good with it.
Right, the Arts Council has been paying for separate insurance when technically, since they're with the city, they didn't need to do that per se, but the ordinance says hold harmless. So I'll follow up with the city attorney with some suggested amendments to this ordinance, and it'll come before council at a future date.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, go ahead.
when this comes back to us, can we just go ahead and like cover everybody that operates in the city on a regular basis, like the chamber, the Arts Council, and Sursa, just so that we're all up to stuff on the insurance? Because I feel like if it's all presented to us and we all talk about it and hear about it, and I think that I'm getting a handle on the conversation, but if we could have it all out in front at the same time, then that way we're all up on that conversation with insurance coverage.
So I'll just chime in, and I'm not sure if we can do, that might be a question for the attorney, the city attorney, if that's something we can do under a blanket ordinance, or if each entity has to be addressed.
Sorry, I'm
individually.
not saying a blanket ordinance. I would just like the conversation while we're talking about insurance and city versus the sponsoring organization, if we could just have that conversation about all those organizations at the same time, so that we're understanding. I know that the city covers insurance for like 4th of July. Those are things that have existed, and we take on that responsibility. But as things are added into the cycle every year, we don't cover all of those, and it's up to the organizations to cover those. I would just like to have a more thorough understanding of our insurance question. I'm not an umbrella piece of legislation, just an umbrella conversation.
Yeah, so it'd basically be a risk assessment
Yes.
conversation, and what kind of liability does the city generally have from year to year, and which organizations are bringing that added risk or liability, and then how do we address it? I think that's what you're getting at, Harmony.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, any other comments before we go to public? Okay, Heidi, does anyone from the public wish to weigh in?
I'm not seeing any hands raised at this time, Mr. Oh, yep, sorry. I apologize. We do have a Miss Laurel Hiltz.
Okay,
Thanks for catching my late hand there. I just appreciate that the conversation takes place about insurance, and as the president of Seldovia Chamber and past president of the Arts Council and such, it was a few years back when we were actively having the chainsaw carving competition that Crystal Collier, as the president of the chamber, brought forward just a discussion about insurance and liability and the risks that are involved. So I would like to say a thanks, of course, to the city and the council for the ongoing relationship with the different agencies in the community to be able to have events and have them in a way that is certainly fiscally responsible and responsible regarding the safety of the participants. So just want to say thank you.
okay, thank you, Laurel. Okay, anyone else from the public, Heidi?
I'm not seeing any more hands raised at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we'll go ahead and bring it back to council. So this is a discussion. So I guess going forward here, we'll get with the city attorney to look at some of this language and basically give us an opinion of what kind of framework we need to be working within for the language moving forward. And then are you guys planning on bringing back like a full draft, or a draft with some options, or what's your thought?
A full draft for sure. And then we can
Okay.
add the elements of how insurance ties into partnerships with the chamber and the Sursa.
Okay. All right. Is everyone good with that approach? Okay, I'm not hearing any objections, so that sounds good. So if you guys will bring that back and then at a later meeting, and then we'll just pick up where we left off on that.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, we're gonna go to item M2, discussion on annexation of Mountain Brook Heights subdivision. This will be found on page 44 of your packet. And this sponsor on this one is Councilmember Nathan. And if we wanted, I don't know if George wants to start or if someone from the administration wants to give a brief start or what we want to do here.
I think it's on me.
Okay.
What I'm going to talk about, we've all hashed over many times. I think we're all of the same mind about the problems that we have and our ideas toward solving them. The bottom line is we have a small number of households here in the city that are subject to property tax, and we cannot afford to provide the services that we're providing based on that tax base. So looking for a solution to this, that we have kind of two schools of thought here within the city. Some of the older residents kind of wants the city to stay as it is. It should be a small off-road community and quiet little place without attracting more people here. And I don't think that view is sustainable. We're bumping the bottom of the barrel now, and we continue to grow and have other commitments. We're just getting farther and farther behind by not bringing some new blood to the party here. One of the ideas to increase our tax base would be to attract some industry, but that other than tourism, that really is kind of impractical. We're just not in a good place, a good geographical position for an industry to thrive here. We're a long way from the transportation chain. Just to get stuff out of Seldovia to across the way where it can get on a truck is a problem. So I see just one path, and that's to get some more people here, and do that by selling the one commodity we have to sell here. This is a beautiful little jewel of a place to live. The quality of life here is excellent. And we're looking for people who have either retirement income or some other way of supporting themselves and not have to have the industry here. And they're going to need a place to live. It's just about the only way I can see for us to draw enough revenue. We certainly can't raise the rates anymore. So let's look at an annexation. Look in all directions here, and where can we go? The area we're looking at has got some very unique advantages. For one thing, there's a quid pro quo here. The people that are to be annexed want it. We've got something they want, and they certainly have something we want. And by having an easy path in that direction, I think we solve a lot of problems. The folks that have this development now would like to have water, and we have water to give them. So they're willing to work with us in putting a deal together that works for everybody. We don't have to fight the battle of dragging people into this. Both sides would like this to happen. I believe the council would like it to happen. The other advantages are this development is contiguous with the city. It's right here. We don't have to go miles down the road to hook up to it. It's compact. All the residents, future residents of this place would be pretty close together. So it's easy for us to develop systems within that small area to make this happen. The services would be easy to integrate. And again, the developer is willing to help and has already helped by the improvements that he's made there. You can't really emphasize too much the fact that the folks that are there now want it. We tried to annex something out the road in the past, and the residents out there fought it tooth and nail. And why shouldn't they? I mean, they don't want to pay more taxes, and they're already established with some way of getting water and disposing of their waste. So why would they? What can we offer them? Nothing, and they've already got what they want. This place wants us to work with them, and the folks that have property there are very small. I think you can probably speak for the whole place out there as far as the populace goes. So what I'm trying to tell you is all the upsides, why we would want to do this. And what I'm asking for is a vote to begin the process of discovering the downsides. Obviously, I don't know if this is a good idea or not. I think it is. But we need to expend some funds and some staff time in order to do the research that's required to determine if this is a good thing or not. And again, that's all I'm asking for at this point is a vote from the council to say, yes, we want to look at this. That's about all I have. Probably Hugh has got something to say.
Yeah, this process started 37 years ago. So it's not a new topic, but to give you an example of what extending water and sewer into an area does for the city. If you look at the property down the far end of town, the other side of what used to be Boundary Street is now Spruce Lane, Spruce Avenue. There are 3 houses there. At the time, they were outside the city limit, and the owner at that time annexed to the city. So those 3 lots were inside the city. The city extended water and sewer to those 3 structures, those 3 lots. As a result of that, I pulled up today the tax base on those 3 lots is over $2 million. So by extending the water and sewer just a few hundred feet, the city then increased their tax base by over $2 million. If you look over in the East Addition, back in the 70s, the city had a land sale, and there was probably about 30 lots in the city that they put up for sale. They had a minimum bid. After the sale, I was talking to the borough tax assessor. He was in town that week, and I asked him how the sale went, and he says, "Oh, they all sold except lot 42." So I asked him, "What does it take to acquire then lot 42? And he said, "Just make the normal down payment at the minimum bid." So I did. At the time, there was no water, no sewer, and no street to lot 42. Since then, I have developed that. I re-subdivided it into 6 lots. And presently, those 6 lots now have a tax base of $867,000. All it took was to extend water and sewer probably 500 feet. But again, it points out that once there's water and sewer available to an area, the tax base is going to go up considerably. If you look at the map that you have in your packet, there's 36 or 30, no, there's about 40 lots there.
42.
Lot 35, 37 years ago, we requested that we be allowed to tap into the city water system. Because we were outside the city limit, they said no. As a result of that, the city has probably lost umpteen thousands of dollars in tax revenue. At the time, we were willing to annex the city. The city was not interested because we were outside the city and they didn't want to give us water, I guess. But anyways, those lots on the map, that's half of the subdivision. I mean, half of what we're looking at that would like to annex. The mate to that, Jim Hopkins has, and he's also interested in the annexation process. So between the two of us, there's a sizable tax base that is readily available for the city. The city water system presently ends about 300 feet from Frank Raby Drive. So it isn't that complicated to extend the city water. On the other side, at the very top of the map, you see a dotted line. That's Wadsworth Street. That's a city plotted street. Another option would be to bring water in from that direction and make a loop for it would benefit everybody. So the owners of the properties in that area are definitely interested, and it's just a matter of who does the paperwork, I guess. I presently have 2 buildings that are, that are semi under construction. I also have my own personal shop and my boat storage buildings. So there's already taxable properties in that area looking for water, looking for sewer. We do have an option for water. We do have a well on Jim Hopkins's property that has been flow tested. It's a well, does not require chlorination, and it flow tested at approximately 60,000 gallons a day, which is about the same amount of water a city of this size would use in a day. It makes sense to me if the city is looking for a secondary or a backup water supply, it's not that far away. It's just a matter of connecting it and going through the necessary engineering work. As far as sewer, some of these lots are classified as wetlands. Wetlands are harder to dispose of sewage in than regular dry land. So there is a note on the borough plot plan that the lots must be connected to a community septic system. Right now, the plan is for each lot to have its own septic tank, and we would have a community disposal site on lot 37, 38, and 39. Questions? I have a hard time hearing, so I try to read your lips and fill in.
Thank you, Hugh. Any questions from council?
Yeah, I have one. So Hopkins is interested. Is it just his Valhalla lot or does he want his shop?
He wants, as far as I know, he'd like to have everything. Now, whether or not, after he starts looking at the numbers, is it just his shop? And the second lot, I'm not sure. Last I knew, it was the entire subdivision.
Okay. I just feel like we're going to run into more issues of he's got a gun range up there and things like that, that I don't know if we want to deal with. I mean, I guess that's down the road. I don't know if he's thought that he wants to be in, I guess. And then you said on the other side of this, which would be who's up there, Walter and Pearlie, and you said they're interested.
Below the map, this map, there's an equal amount down here, which is Jim's.
I'm looking at it backwards. Oh. But they're not the other way, closer to the airport.
No,
No, they don't want in.
well, across the top.
Yeah.
No, part of that is the state land. And then you got Pearlie, and I'm not sure. I
Uh-huh.
haven't talked to Pearlie,
Yeah.
I tend to doubt that he's interested.
right?
Yeah. Okay.
And then some people have mentioned to me, well, why don't they think about extending the water line farther out towards the dump? And pick up more residents out that way. And again, that's beyond my comments.
Right. And I think I'm really not entirely opposed to this. Obviously, we went through that whole presentation with the Boundary Commission, which was, I'd say, kind of a waste of time, because if we brought it to the Boundary Commission, they're not going to say no. They don't even, the only issue is the utilities. And they even said, we don't come back and check if you do that, so it's not our problem. So that's not going to be an issue. It's just who's going to pay for, I see you have engineering reports here. That's, I mean, there's just an initial 25,000 right there for looking at what it would take to extend to the subdivision. And that's not going to be the end of what's required financially. And that's the only thing that hangs me up on it. Otherwise, I would love to, send water up the road, develop it, have people live out there. It's a great place. It checks all those boxes. It's right next to town. It's what we need to help expand the community, or for the people that want it to be expanded. For me, it just comes down to who's paying.
Right, and I look at it that, why should I spend $200,000 so that the city can collect $1,000 off of my work?
Right. And I mean, I can see your side of it as well, of why would I pay for this? And we don't really have the money to pay for this. I don't know if that opens up looking for money. I don't know if that is the interest of the council, but that seems to be the only way that would
Then too,
be able to move forward.
I look at over the last 50 years, all of the water and sewer extension that the city has performed has been with grants. Isn't that an option?
I suppose. I mean, and then I guess this is what George is asking us. Is this something we want to look into? Is that this is our starting off point? I'm not opposed to that if that's what it takes. I mean, I know that we have the priority list in there of what we want to spend our time on. I don't know where this was going to fall, but I'm not opposed to it if it can be done. I guess that's my opinion.
So, if you look at Eider Lane over in the East Addition, we extended water and sewer up Eider Lane. Then the city turned around and got a grant to replace everything we did. Why do it twice?
Hugh, if I could just say a couple more things.
Pardon?
I said, if I could just say a couple more things. What we're talking about here are questions that I'm hoping to be able to answer by spending a little time and effort, maybe a little bit of money in research. As I said, what we're looking for now is simply the authority to use staff time to answer these questions. I believe that this is a good idea, but I don't know it. And I don't think anybody else does either. It has all the earmarks of being a good way to go, but you've asked proper questions, and that's what I'm hoping to answer. One more thing that I forgot to mention earlier. I've talked to Jenny Chissis about this. She is quite sure she could sell everything out there, from bare land to developed, houses. There's absolutely nothing for realtors to sell in Seldovia right now. So I think we've got a market there. It's all a matter of dollars and cents. What's it going to cost us to do what we need to do to make this happen? And again, that's what I hope to accomplish today, is to get the authority to ask the questions and get them answered.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yep, go ahead, Vivian.
I think I'm totally in favor of getting more real estate on the books for Seldovia. I do have one question. When Hugh made a presentation, I think his first one in the last year or two, he had referred to not necessarily putting all of the lots on the books. And I can't remember exactly what that was about, but I need clarification on that. When we start running numbers, to me, we need to figure out, okay, there's 40 lots out there. And right now, how much of those bare lots bring into the city of Seldovia? $100? I mean, would they bring in $100 per lot? I have no idea. Those numbers need to be run. But going back to that comment that Hugh made, I need clarification, and I could have heard it wrong. But for me, if we annexed in that property, all of the property would go on the books and would be assessed as such. So I think we need to figure out what our expenses are going to be and what our revenue is going to be. And it doesn't have to be down to the fine dollar, the nickels and cents. But we need to figure out, because we've got expenses, that means we're going to be plowing the streets. If it gets annexed, what's our plowing responsibilities? What's our road maintenance responsibilities? Of course, in the water line, that's huge. We have lots within the city limits right now that we don't have water and sewer to. And I think when we refer to other people maybe being interested in being annexed, I want those people to come forward to the council and tell us what they are interested in doing or not doing. Because we're talking about a well that Jim has, but is he really interested in being a part of that or not? So I think bottom line is, right off the bat, can you calculate roughly if those 40 lots were put on the city of Seldovia? Right now they're paying whatever they're paying, $200, $300 to the borough per lot. I have no idea for sure. How much would the city of Seldovia be getting per lot? And then we have some numbers to go with, but this is, we know doing our budget, we don't have any money. But is it a good idea? Absolutely. To get people living in houses around here, and multi-dwelling houses would be great. But again, we need to look at what the numbers are going to be, and do we have money to expend right now, or can somebody do some, we can, George take on this project and run some numbers. What would those lots bring in if we put them into the into our system? And then what would it cost us to bring water? Because I think Hugh is and then also sewer. Is that correct? He was talking about, I'm not really sure what what he's requesting from the city with water and sewer. But those are just thoughts I had. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Vivian.
Mr. Mayor.
Yep, go ahead, Harmony.
Yeah, I'm in favor of going forward with pursuing this annexation. I think that the purpose of tonight is just to begin those clarification questions, making sure that we understand the boundary of who we're annexing, and what that all would entail. We continue to talk about the need for more housing in this community, for more affordable housing in this community, for dwelling housing in this community, to raise our tax base. Those are all things that we talk about consistently. And I think this is an opportunity for us to see something actually happen, to take those steps towards, our goals as a council and a city. I don't think that tonight's objective is to say, yes, we're doing it. We're putting in pipes tomorrow. But I'm also interested in this leach field that he's got platted for here on these lots 30, these 3 lots he had earmarked by Frank Raby, correct?
Pardon?
I don't know. I think that there is a lot of potential in this project. I think that could be a really good thing for the community at large. And, we should reach out to Jim Hopkins and see what he's interested in. I don't know that people further down the dump road are interested in annexation, but as far as these lots go, the representative here is telling us that he does want that. And he's very close to our pipes as they exist. So it's a stepping stone towards accomplishing a lot of our goals as a council and as a community. And I am in favor of putting staff time towards seeing what grants are available to us, what partnerships are available to us to make something like this happen. And that's all.
Okay, thank you, Harmony. Anyone else?
Mayor Campbell.
Yep, go ahead, John.
I got Hugh, are any of those lots out there slated for multi-dwellings? Are they all for single dwellings? For example, just like a 4-plex apartment, for example?
I have a hard time hearing. Try that a little bit louder.
Are any of those lots slated for any type of construction other than individual houses?
No,
So
there's no restrictions presently.
So we could put in a 4-plex, for example. Okay. I'm not against some type of discovery but I would like to see something done as far as maybe just a simple survey with the adjoining property members to see what kind of troubles we're going to run into there, what that might bring up. I've had some limited conversations with Jim. It sounded to me that he was in favor of it. But I'd like to hear from the adjoining property owners. The other thing is, has there ever been any discussion about phases? You say there's 40 lots. Maybe we could do the first 10.
Yeah, I
Get some revenue coming in and do the second 10. See where I'm going with that? Yeah.
I've been looking at, Joy's house is on lot 40. That's her summer house. Right across the road is lot 20, which is the one we're presently working on.
Right.
And I look at going down Echo Way. There's about 10 or 12 lots there, kind of in a loop. And I've talked to HEA, what would it take to service that particular road and the present ones that we're working on.
Right. So that would technically be a small phase like I'm
Right.
discussing.
Right.
Okay.
And I look at it.
Okay.
as 2 to 3 structures a year.
Right. Okay. Well, I have the same concerns that everybody else does. I'm in favor of it, but I have the same concerns. The city really doesn't have the money. The big concern I have is the capacity on the sewer down the road. In our current disposal system, we have plenty of water.
Anything we do has to be approved by DEC.
Right. I realize that. I just, our own sewer system, I don't know if it has any more capacity to down the road without some kind of improvement. That's all I have. Right.
Yeah, Mr.
All right.
Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead, George.
Joy's house, Hugh told me when it was assessed, it was about half built. So if we assume that that house would be assessed at $150,000, and the lot is 7,500, it would mean about, in round numbers, $1,200 to the city. So pretty easy to run that out to 40 lots at about $70,000, $65,000. So that's a very preliminary guess at what the revenue would be. Again, what I'm asking the council to do is approve the wherewithal to get the answers that we're looking for.
Yeah, Mr.
Okay,
Mayor?
thank you, George. Yep, go ahead, Bobby.
Yeah, I obviously still have a lot of questions, but I'm in favor of finding out some more information. I think it's time probably that we do that. Last time we looked into this was quite a long time ago, and the numbers didn't really look all that good, but I don't remember all these lots either at that time, but anyway, maybe it was, but I just don't remember. So I'm in favor of at least getting some more information about this whole project. And I too am also concerned, like what John said about our infrastructure, whether it can handle in reality even 10 lots, the sewer anyway. So yeah, I definitely would like some more information.
May I ask you a
Thanks.
question? Mr.
Yep,
Mayor?
go ahead.
Would not potentially, if we were to go seek a grant for infrastructure support, hey, we're looking at, our current infrastructure is in need of an update, and we're also looking at an annexation of, a minimum 40 lots. Does that not give us some sort of leg up, like, okay, well, they're going from a community of 100 households to, what I mean? Does that not potentially give us some sort of advantage? Yeah, Rachel. Sorry. Not asking you.
Sometimes you guys talk questions and then I'm like, do we answer that or does that just go on? But through the mayor, council member Peyton, it depends on the funding source. So for example, the state revolving loan fund that can be up to 75% forgiven does not support new service,
Okay.
new utilities, new extension. If the city were to be creative in its approach with housing, affordable housing, and so you require the developer to guarantee construction of affordable housing within a certain time frame, maybe there's grants or programs that could support that, but these grants have a very short turnaround time in terms of when you can spend, or it just depends on the funding sources, I guess, a short way of answering that question.
But potentially.
Yeah, I could see that being an
We did
advantage.
some fancy footwork. There's potential.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Vivian.
If I could get clarification from Hugh, is his idea to build spec houses on different lots and sell them as he goes? Or is he talking about selling raw land if the whole thing got annexed in? Maybe someone could, I'm not sure if you could hear me or not. If somebody could relay that question.
Yeah, I think I heard most of it.
Oh,
I
good.
mean, I heard it, but whether or not I understood it. Anyways, my thinking is if we look back 50 years at Seldovia, there was a lot of what I would consider slum housing. Would not meet today's standards. And most of those structures have burnt over the years, most of them by wood stove related heating systems. I look at using today's building standards and today's building efficiency, energy wise standards, that if individual lots were sold to individual people, they would be inclined to build semi shacks, which I do not want to see. I would rather see something that is built to the strictest present day building codes and energy codes. So I look at it that I would like to oversee the construction of the buildings. So
So
that they would meet today's energy standards.
Right. So Hugh, just to clarify my question, your intention is that you would build homes to sell, which is perfectly fine with me, that you would sell homes on the lots and sell them as spec houses, pretty much, quality spec houses.
Yes, I would prefer to build it and
Yeah.
sell it.
Okay, good, perfect, thank you.
I'm not interested in building rentals.
Okay, thank you, Vivian. Thank you, Hugh. I just want to go ahead and chime in now. I think we've made a roundabout here on everyone. So we've always, one thing we've always come up against here, we know our limiting factor in Seldovia with just existing period and budgets and providing services and stuff to our community is our one restriction is our small population, right? It's our small population, it's our small tax base, all of that. So I am certainly an advocate for any kind of growth. In this case, we know the annexation process right now, it seems like we have a council that is pretty much in agreement. That could all change after the next election. So I would not be short-sighted, and saying that we only, if we were going to do this, we only do 10 lots and then 10 lots and then 10 lots. If you're going to do this, you go all in and you get every single thing that you could possibly get in one stroke where everyone's in agreement, because that's what it's going to take. The stars are going to align. So you get it all, you do it all. There's nothing that says you have to have utilities tomorrow or in 10 years. That's just not here. The other thing that we have is a planning document that's in our packet, that's prepared by the local boundary commission. It's a perfect framework to go through this entire thing. So this is basically a project. If you're going to assign the city to take this project on, you're going to have to do some very preliminary work, come up with some estimates. We talked about if it's 150,000 a pop, one might be 150, one might be 350. We all know everyone does their own individual things to their own lots. So you're going to pick a happy medium. That's going to be your tax base in the future. But I don't want to be short-sighted in thinking that taxes is our only thing here, because it's not. It's growing our community, right? It's growing our community. It's having more to offer. It's having more houses to offer. It's having more area to offer. It's having more voting residents. There's a lot of upside for this. At the same time, when you go through the packet, they want to hear about upside, right? That's the first thing they say. There's 14 things. Let's talk about the upside in our objectives to annexation. And then on the flip side, the very next page on page 3, consider potential arguments against annexation, right? So you're going to go through, you're going to prepare a report, and you're going to briefly go through every single one of these and have a synopsis of pros, the cons. This is all part of the fact finding on this whole thing. And once you do that, you're going to identify the people first. We're going to go through this exercise, and then it's going to come down, okay, does this make sense for us to move forward with actually filling out a petition? And at that time, the petition is going to be lengthy, and it's going to address all of these things in this document. In my mind, this petition is going to be 20 pages. It's not a paragraph, it's 20 pages, and it's detailed. And it's something that the Boundary Commission can go right on down the list, look at and say, all right, you guys have done your homework. We're going to go ahead and agree on it. Boom. all the other things aside, utilities, water, sewer, all of that can certainly, we can address our best case scenario, but all the details on that, the costs, all of that, that's all going to have to be negotiated with the landowners individually, who's paying for what. And we know that we're not in the position to, spend, $300,000 or $400,000, $500,000, $1 million in cash. Could we get grants in the future? Absolutely, we could get grants in the future. Will that take 20 years? It could take 20 years. So there's a lot of variables in this process, but generally, without, ranting on, the framework's laid out. I agree with everyone else here. I think this is something that makes sense. There's going to be a lot of questions, and it's not going to be a short process. But it doesn't have to be super complicated. To me, one of the biggest complications that always comes up during annexation is, number one, you get all the people that oppose being annexed. Well, if you take that out of the equation, you're basically already 100% on your way to success. So if you try to annex somebody that doesn't want to be annexed, equals failure immediately. It's failure and it's a waste of time. So don't do it. So that's all I'm going to say. Generally, I'm in support. Obviously, like Jennifer had said, we've got a list of our priorities for the manager that would have to be amended at some point, either formally, perhaps at the next meeting or something, if that's the way the council wants to go. But I think generally for what George is looking for is a general vote of support. If we get the vote of support, we come back at the next meeting and figure out what that means with our list, what priority it is, all of that. That's a whole nother discussion, because that's going to take a couple hours in itself there to figure out, what amount of resources we want to throw at this thing. So, but I think that's generally, I'm hearing a consensus of support for getting the process started. So we'll have one more opportunity for everyone to come back and finish up. But what I want to do is see if anyone from the public now wants to weigh in. Then we'll come back to council for closing thoughts and arguments here. Heidi, if you've got anyone that wanted to weigh in from the public.
Yes, we do, Mr. Mayor. We
Okay.
have Mr. Greg Wolfer.
Good evening, Mayor. This is Greg and council members and city manager. Jeremiah, I think you stole some of my thunder there, by golly.
Uh-oh.
That's okay. I just wanted to reiterate the complicated process of filing for annexation. I got to talk to Jedediah Smith today and kind of got him caught up to speed about the council members on the agenda today. And quite frankly, I'll just quote him. He says, annexation requires a large commitment of time, resources, and before any decision is made to begin work on a annexation petition. A lot of thought should be given to the need for annexation as well as the method used. And I might add that before even a petition is considered, there needs to be scheduled a public hearing so we could gather all the citizens together to see what they're saying. And a public hearing is probably a way to go if there is any intent at all on that. The annexation process, I don't think is warranted because of the 339 mailing days of the annexation process is required. Not to mention that we probably don't have manpower, staff, and in a post-COVID era to do this annexation. So, but you summed it all, Jeremiah. Thanks a lot, and you saved me from saying a lot more. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Greg. Appreciate that. Anyone else, Heidi, from the public that wishes to weigh in?
I'm not seeing any more hands raised at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. All right, we'll go ahead and bring it back to council, and we'll probably look for, we can look for some more discussion, but we'll probably look for a motion to see if we can come up with enough votes here of support to consider looking at the process, or furthering the process with basically fact finding at this point to find out whether or not we want to even move forward with a petition in the future. I think that's what you're looking for, right, George?
That's what I'm looking for.
Okay.
And one other comment on the application process. I looked at all of the applications that have been approved by the Boundary Commission in the last 10 years. None of them are 20 pages long. I won't say any more than that. Being able to look at what's been approved before, I think would be a great help to us in preparing that document. Also, I believe the citizenry that we need to approach as far as their acceptance of this are the ones that are being annexed.
Mr. Mayor.
I moved we instruct the city manager to begin a study to determine the feasibility and cost of annexation of Hughes. The Mountain View Heights subdivision.
Okay, before we go for a second, hold that thought. Vivian, you had gotten.
Yep, thanks. Actually, I'd like to hear from our city manager, her sentiments or what she's hearing and the amount of time that this is going to require. If she wouldn't mind putting herself and her staff on a point of what do you think? What are you thinking about what you've heard tonight and taking on the responsibility of another task?
So through the mayor, thank you, Councilmember Rojas, for the opportunity to comment. I did look at the priorities that council has set, and we've accomplished a lot of them. And in checking in with staff, I do think that we have some capacity for a very preliminary exploration of the project. So not something that, we can get this done this year, or we can get this done the next 5 years even, but just a exploration of if it's even feasible. And a few things come to mind for me. First and foremost, I think that I can totally be in support and honor the council's wishes of annexation. I am concerned because there's a lot of funding coming through for big projects to take care of city infrastructure. Like, for example, we just got this block grant. We're looking at harbor funding. We want to improve our roads. We want to improve our energy and other buildings, possibly even hydropower at our dam. So the questions I would leave council with, if I guess I had to leave a sentiment, is, when we get this study, this feasibility study brought before you, which will not cover everything, because we would need to hire an engineer for that and a lawyer probably, but it will give a general sense. But I would like the council to think, is this where you want to direct some of the limited resources and attention that the city has over the next few years? What is the council's future vision for Seldovia and its development? So if we put that another way, is this the only area the city wants to consider annexing? Do you want to go down the road down to, is that Frank Raby? It's important to have a vision, because there's going to be a lot of great projects that come before the council, but they take a lot of time. And so this is going to be a very big undertaking. And with all of the infrastructure funding and projects and our current infrastructure, just when you have the results of this study, because it sounds like council does want staff to put a little time into that, put that up against the other really critical, significant needs that aren't just pitted towards one subdivision, but impact the whole city. So I guess, Councilmember Rojas, that's just what I would add, is just to get council to think of the entire city, the best interest of the city, and the timing of this project for sure.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Yeah, thank you, Vivian. I guess one comment I would just add before we look for a second here is that, looking at this one, the comment that George said kind of struck me, that most of those, and I haven't seen most of those applications that were approved were, much less than 20 pages. So maybe that tells me that this is, maybe, I know it's complicated, but maybe it is a little easier, the process than I'm thinking. But I look at this guiding document, and there's obviously a lot of information here. But with, Rachel, listening to your words, I think one thing to keep in mind is I think depending on how you go in and approach this, you could pick the hard way or you could pick the easy way. And I think what we're looking for is somewhere in between, not so in depth that it's, going to suck a year out of your life, basically. But I think we have to keep it generally answer the questions, but higher level, to the point where we're not getting so micro, it's going to take us forever to get to. I don't know if that's coming across, how that's coming across, but there's definitely more than one way to skin a cat, if you will, here, approaching a project like this. So I just want to throw that out there.
Mr. Mayor?
Yep. Go ahead, George.
I've been working on this by myself with absolutely very little staff help up to now. And I think we've accomplished a fair amount of things. I think I can allay the city manager's fear by negotiating with her about the amount of staff time to be used. Give me an hour a week or an hour a day or whatever you think is appropriate. That we can agree on. And I don't think it's going to drag the staff away from other projects.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, Harmony.
I second the motion.
Okay. So we have a motion by Nathan to ask the city manager to move forward with get half the motion that was move forward with the process of looking into the annexation of the Mountain View Heights subdivision. Second by Peyton. Any further discussion before we vote? And I know it's Rachel will have to sit down. If there is a affirmative vote, we'll have to sit down, and I would like to do that at a subsequent meeting and bring back our list of priorities, and then talk through that at a separate meeting, in terms of time, after you guys, maybe have had an opportunity to think through what's reasonable that you guys can still manage.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, go ahead, Bobby.
Yeah, I'd just like to clarify, it's Mountain Brook Heights subdivision.
Mountain Brook Heights.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Okay, any additional discussion before we vote? Okay, we'll go ahead and vote on the motion. Sweat,
Aye.
Rojas,
I,
Kennedy,
Aye.
Swick,
Aye.
Peyton,
Aye.
Nathan.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 6-0. Okay, so then I'd like at the perhaps the next meeting then, Rachel, or a meeting in the future here, depending on the agenda, to bring back our list of priorities, and then we'll see where that fits in, and then how much time after you've had an opportunity to look at it, and then just kind of think through it preliminarily, what you think, and then I think we can just work through it at that point, if you're fine with that approach.
Yeah, it sounds great.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think we have one more item tonight before we get into the manager's report. That'll be item, that's going to be M3, discussion on ordinance 22-XX, amending title 7 animals. This will be found on page 67 of your packet, and the city clerk will take this one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to start by saying that this came forward in the winter. So prior to the busy summer season, this topic came forward because we had an individual who was interested in pursuing a kennel license application, which is in the ordinance, which is in the Seldovia Municipal Code now. However, we didn't have a process we didn't have a process in the office for moving forward with that application. So upon reviewing Title VII and speaking with our police chief about the process for licensing and impoundment, we came to the conclusion that we needed to do kind of a revamp, and the whole title is included because a lot of it really is just reformatting the structure of the ordinance. It used to just be 7.0, or is just 7.04 general provisions. And you can see on page 70, then everything fell under general provisions, when now they would be separated out into actual sections, chapters under Title VII. So this is a draft ordinance with the chapter reformat as it's stated. It does also update definitions. It separates the code language pertaining to licensing and kennel licensing. And I should state that there is a memo that I wrote up that starts on page 67 that's going to have the basic questions on it. But just to point out changes that were made, like I said, pertaining code language pertaining to licensing and kennel licensing, removing the minimum hold time on animal impoundment, because the city does not want to be responsible for holding animals if property owners can come and pay their fines for impoundment. We want to be able to release them back and not have to hold them for a specific amount of time. Removing sections of the code that pertain to exemptions and disposal of dog at owner's request. Draft policy on animal control was also provided in the packet following the ordinance, the draft ordinance, and applications for dog licensing and kennel licensing. Staff is recommending through this ordinance that the dog licensing be changed from an annual license to a lifetime license for animals that are vaccinated and spayed or neutered. It's just one less thing to annually manage if dogs have long life periods and we're having them, they're not going anywhere and we're just having them relicense every year. It seems like it's a little more than is needed for staff time and dog owner time to do that, or a 3-year license if they're not spayed and neutered, or if just somebody is not planning on being here long-term and wants a 3-year license. We're asking for council consideration if the requirement for licensing, this is just the general dog licensing, should be changed to 4 months instead of 3 to match the rabies vaccination recommendations, or to 6 months to match kennel licensing requirements. Right now it says 3 months, your dog needs to be licensed. However, rabies vaccinations is like 14 weeks. It's more appropriate that an animal would be vaccinated at 4 months or above. And that's part of what we're trying to capture with licensing, right? Is that people are vaccinating. We know who their animals are if they do cause a conflict in the future. And we have that record. And then, like I said, for 6 months for kennels. So can we make that consistent? What makes the most sense? I recommend either 4 or 6 months on both kenneling or licensing, whichever the council thinks is appropriate. And on how many animals are required, is an individual required to have a kennel license? In the code, it states 4. I think there's been a town perception from even prior to working at the city that you could have up to 6 dogs. I've heard that multiple times. I don't know where that number came from. It is not in code. So as for an appropriate number of animals on a premise that then requires a kennel license, and there's on the application, you'll see there's an example of, or on the example, it shows that you can mark it's either for a commercial purpose. So like you have a kennel business, a breeding business, whatever it is, for a commercial business, or just an individual. I want to own 4 to 6 dogs, however many dogs you're owning. So those are really the 2 main questions. And then if everything else looks good to council for the language updates, and, you know, the code changes, sorry, I just said that, then we can bring this forward as an ordinance introduction and move forward with that.
Okay, thank you, Heidi. All right, we'll go ahead and open it up to council for any comments.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, Vivian, go ahead.
Yeah, Heidi, I kind of got lost there where you were talking about the, I see the kennel commercial where for either deciding to change that where there's 4 or more than 6 dogs or over 6 months of age are owned. So the question is, under item 8, kennel, and then what was the other document? Or the thing you wanted to change in the ordinance? I'm
Sorry, yes, sorry, my mic wasn't on. The question is whether or not, or how many animals require a kennel license. So 4, 5, 6, whatever that number is. And then can we move the the age requirement for dog licensing from 3 months to either 4 months or 6 months? That way it's either in line with rabies vaccination at 4 months or kennel licensing at 6 months.
Okay, well, to me, it seems like if it makes it easier for this office to be able to have a number to target, then I'm all in favor of that, to changing it. As far as, a kennel, a commercial, I mean, it seems like 4 dogs is a pretty good herd to start with. Okay, I just need clarification. I'm still thinking about what's here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Vivian. So if you've got 4 dogs, what you're saying here is if you've got 4 dogs that are even kept for private, not for sale, and are owned and kept for private enjoyment, you would still have to get a kennel license, but it would be called kennel private.
Right. Right now in our code, it specifies that they have to have a kennel license. So this would just separate out commercial and private on one application. But according to code inside city limits, if you have 4 or more dogs, you should have a kennel license as of now. I mean, as of previous, this is already on the books.
Right. And then if you have 4 or more, they're going to be owned, kept of age, are owned, kept, boarded, bred, and offered or offered for sale. Then you'd have to get a kennel commercial license. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, can I chime in?
Yep, absolutely.
So this private kennel, I feel like can just go away. Do we need to be in anyone's business how many dogs they have in their house and need a diagram of their yard? I don't think so. I don't even like dogs. This is coming from someone that doesn't like dogs. But if you want to have 6 dogs in your house, go for it. I feel like we just need to stay on the upper level of having them not be a nuisance to your neighbors.
Just remember when they're all barking and your children can't sleep.
Nuisance to your neighbors. 1 dog can be just as bad as 6 or whatever. I don't think we need to get into that. You got a diagram. Commercial is one thing, whatever. That's a whole different thing. But the private kennel, I feel like, is ridiculous. We don't need to be nitpicking people's choices. I'm sure if they have 6 dogs, they're taking care of them because they love dogs. That's why they have 6 of them.
Well,
I'm not the ASPCA. I don't know. This is not, I don't feel like this is something we need to concern ourselves with. The nuisance factor and dogs running at large and licenses. I love the lifetime license idea because $5 a year. I mean, who really comes in to do that? My mom, when she had a dog, that was about it when I worked there. Yeah, the rest of it, I was, reading through, and I feel like he's going to grab a dog. Where's he going to keep it when he impounds a dog?
If I could speak to that.
Yeah.
So there is language in there that he could contract out, and that's what the city has done in the past. And I would like to also include on a side note that in the policy, it specifically states that the city of Seldovia does not want to impound animals. It's not our first priority
Well,
is to impound
yes.
animals. But if we
Although
have
there are
to,
a couple that need to be impounded from time to time.
but if it has to happen, and that's why it's on there, if it has to happen, then the hope is that we would have to be, that we would be able to contract with a private individual or business that would be able to provide that care.
Okay, because then there's a piece in there of if they don't pay the fine for their dog, we're gonna put it up for adoption or kill it. I mean, this is wow.
Right? We can. That language is already there.
I know, I realized that was cool, but I mean. that
This
a
is what they
political-
deal with in the big
No,
cities.
I know, but it just seems a little extreme. I don't know. That's my rant. Sorry.
I have one more to add to that. The problem are not the dogs, it's the owners. And there are a few of those in this town.
I would agree with the private kennel deal. I think if you want 6 dogs, you should be able to do that. As far as the person gets fined for whatever reason, we got his dog, how are you going to ensure he's going to, there have to be some teeth in it. Otherwise folks are never going to pay the fine. They held my dog hostage in Homer because he broke the chain and ran off one day.
Mr. Mayor, if I may?
Yeah, go ahead, Vivian.
Well, I think under 8B about the kennel private, there was a period of time where we had people in town who had dogs living, like tons of dogs. So I'm not sure when this ordinance was kind of set up, but it was trying to keep people under control of how many animals they had and actually taking care of their animals. So I think it was justified in its time. I think in some ways it puts the onus on the owner, and we know that, right, the dogs aren't bad. It's usually the owner that has a problem. It puts the onus on the owner to realize that, if you do have 4 dogs or more at your home that are 6 months of age or owned or kept for private enjoyment, that we request that you have a license or a kennel that's called private, just so the onus is on the owner that there is legitimate rules and regulations that we expect you to live by. Because there was a period of time when this place was a wild zoo with animals, dogs running everywhere and dogs living on top of each other everywhere. So perhaps this ordinance was put together way back when, or at that time. And I'm glad to see it being cleaned up, because going back, this ordinance was when we actually had a animal control person. We actually had a person, I think he was actually the harbor master and the animal control person. So we actually had people doing this job, and then that went by the wayside. So it needs to be cleaned up again. But that's it, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Vivian. Yeah, and I know we're, kind of razzing each other here a little bit on some of these things, but we do got to remember that it is, if you're going to have a kennel with, more than 4, 5, 6 dogs inside city limits, you're going to be near another home. At some point, it is going to be a problem. I mean, we ran into that in my former community with people suing each other for years and years over this. And it was big money because there was tourism involved on both pieces of property. And these are large parcels that were even outside city limits. And it's just because the barking was nonstop 24/7. And now granted, that's a sled dog kennel, a little different deal. But yeah, it just, so it if it gets out of control, if there's, if you have 10, 12 dogs, it's going to be noisy. It's definitely going to get noisy.
Mayor Campbell.
Yep, go ahead, John.
I was having a little fun with everybody as well, but to answer the 2 questions, I'm in favor of 4 dogs and 6 months, plain and simple.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Mayor?
Yep, go ahead.
I feel like the purpose of a kennel license is to indicate whether or not somebody intends to make money off the dogs that they own. I think a kennel license should apply to anybody who intends to make money off the dog. We should remove the amount of, maybe arguably we should put a limit on, if you have 12 dogs inside city limits, our lots are not that big. That seems excessive, but that's not on here. I agree with what John just said about the 6-month licensing to allow for the shop process, but I don't know that we should be telling people who have dogs for personal enjoyment that they need a kennel license. That's doesn't make sense to me. I think a kennel license should be applied to people who intend to make money off their dog, where they have one dog that they intend to breed for $2,500 a pup, or 4 dogs which they intend to breed for whatever. I think a kennel license should be applied to people making money off the dogs that they own, not to people who like to throw a stick.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think I'm fine with the 6 months. I would be fine if the private in 8B was deleted out of there. And then one thing on the language, though, you might want to, kennel commercial means premises where 4 or more dogs over 6 months of age are owned, kept, boarded, bred, and or offered for sale, in a calendar year or something. Heidi, it gets into language. Just so, just thinking through the semantics of that, just so you can, make sure there's not a simple loophole around that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes,
Yeah.
because it is in code right now that it's a person must obtain a kennel license if 4 or more dogs 6 months or older are to be kept on the same premises. It doesn't matter why the dogs are being kept. It's just that there's 4 or more. So we can add language that specifies
I
it's
got
for
I
a
got
business purpose.
Yeah, and you may be covered, but I agree. I think it's if you're making money, then that should be the whole point of the kennel license. So anybody else have any objections to the 6 months in terms of the age for licensing? Okay. Heidi, what else in this needed a decision?
Really, that was the big portion of it. There's always the question of if the fines and fees are applicable. Right now, it's the 3-year fee would be $30. The lifetime would be $60. And that just really is a good incentive to fix your animal and be able to get the lifetime license. If not, then we don't want to, but then if not, then the 3-year license allows us to be able to check in and have contact with that owner to see if there's more animals, whatever's happening in that situation. So that's why the language is put like that. Fines, I don't know if you've had a chance to look through what fines are currently in there. We kind of left them the same, and I have been in conversation with Chief Hawkins. We do want to do a revamp of the uniform minor offense table. Hopefully maybe this fall we'll start that process, but it's a big process. It'll also cover dog licensing, but 11 other titles, and not including Title I, where those provisions are at for the uniform minor offense table. So those will be discussed at a later date. But if you had any specific requests for fines to be changed or added, now is a great time for that consideration as well.
Okay, thank you. And I'm looking for the language here. There would be no actual fines or fees in this ordinance, right? It would all refer back to the fine and fee schedules.
The language does start on page 83, control and confinement of animals. And there is a few in smaller areas prior to this, but this is the majority of them. And these were already on the book. So it's like confinement of vicious dogs and females in season, declaration of public nuisance, failure to maintain in a clear and sanitary condition and free from objectable odor, all structures, so on and so forth. The allowing of any animal to defecate, dig upon, or otherwise injure private or public property or public thoroughfare. no person shall fail to dispose immediately of any dead dog, whether his own or found upon his property. And so there's a whole couple of pages there.
Yeah, no, I guess what I was getting at, I see it in 7.16.080 fines. Unless referenced above, the violation of any provision under this table shall be punishable by the fine established in section 1.08 of the Seldovia City Code. So that refers to all fines going back to the fine schedule, and then the fees. The fees, I'm not seeing dollar amounts. So the fees would also refer back to the fee schedule, right?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, that's
I
all
have
I was
a-
trying to get
I have
to.
a quick question, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, go ahead.
The land use, when we're talking kennel, what are why do I not know this? What are the zones? Waterfront, commercial, residential, commercial, what are the other ones?
Great question. So it starts residential, special multi, which is only the Seldovia house, waterfront, commercial, residential, commercial, industrial, commercial business, commercial residential, airport, and public.
You didn't have all those memorized?
Do
Okay, any other comments, questions on this before we go to public? Okay, Heidi, does anyone from the public want to weigh in?
I'm not seeing any hands on this at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we're going to bring it back to council. So this was a discussion before we get it introduced. Any further discussion on this, or are we good to let the staff know that they can go ahead and bring it back at a later meeting for introduction? Okay, I'm not hearing any objections, so if you would, go ahead and bring this back as we discussed at the whatever next meeting you feel is appropriate for introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, all right, we'll move on here and try to get wrapped up. Item N, city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. And it does say provided in the laydown packet, but I'm actually going to defer to the city clerk, who is acting city manager for the past 2 weeks, and she can go through a verbal update of some pretty exciting and significant stuff.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just a couple of events that happened over the last couple of weeks. I know you guys are probably all aware of the false tsunami warning that happened on June 2nd. This was triggered by a third party during a routine monthly tsunami warning system test. The city met with the National Tsunami Warning Center and the Kenai Peninsula Borough Office of Emergency Management to discuss the event and provide feedback. We've been assured that it should not happen again. It was human error. The warning was a good opportunity for the NTWC, which is the National Tsunami Warning Center, to review their procedures and protocols, and for the KPB OEM to review their redundancies. They were working remote when it happened, which was why the all clear was kind of strange or quiet and didn't have a chime prior to it. We did provide feedback that it would be great if it did always have a chime. That way people knew to pay attention to it. And the city was also able to review its emergency contacts and messaging capabilities. It did reiterate to the Kenai Peninsula Borough that they had or the Office of Emergency Management, that they have a need for communities to have loudspeakers that tie into the warning system, which is something that they are working on. And it is important to note that the all clear was not immediately sounded, nor will it be in the future until KPBOM can verify its status. So even though we all kind of knew that there wasn't a warning happening, there wasn't an actual event, they still have to go through the process to verify before they can sound that all clear, which is why there was a delay. Our AMOS, which we've discussed over the last couple of months, has been approved, and that's the alternative method of system supervision for the city's utility system. It will be set to be reviewed in a year. This allows the city to be compliant with their certifications for level 2 water treatment plant, and for the level 2 water treatment plant and level 1 wastewater collection system. With the approval of operator Cameron's level treatment 1 treatment and level 1 distribution certifications last month. The city is compliant for distribution without the AMOS. And he is looking towards attending a future class for his level 1 wastewater certification, which means that we would just need to hold on to the AMOS once he's able to get wastewater, hold on to the AMOS until he can get his level 2 certifications for treatment, because that's what type of facility we have. And he will be eligible for that level 2 treatment certification by April of 2024 at the latest. So we're making headway on that, on the certifications for our system. But as of now, once we follow up with Todd and Homer and get everything worked out, we are compliant. Fish stocking in the dark. I made a post, and you guys are hopefully aware that the fish school bus made it to Seldovia on the ferry on June 12th in the wee hours of the morning. Despite the late arrival, there was still a decent turnout of individuals to help with the annual stocking of the 105,000 Chinook smolt in the Seldovia slough. And overall, minus a few smolt lost due to a busted hose, the event, I think, was a success from what I'm hearing. I did not attend because of the timing, but it sounds like there was a good group of people. Unfortunately, the street sweeper was not able to make it on that ferry. The city tried to arrange a ticket for transportation, and the ferry was full. So the ticket has been purchased, and it is scheduled to arrive on the next ferry on June 26th and will then return to Homer on July 11th. It's coming, just not when we wanted it to. City surplus equipment auction open house took place last week over a period of 2 days and was a big success. There was quite a bit of a turnout. A lot of people showed up both days, and we've received quite a few bid envelopes already. So I'd say we probably have, I didn't count them, but there's over 20. And people have until 3 p.m. on Wednesday, June 15th to get those bids in. And winners will be announced Thursday, June 16th at noon here in the multipurpose building. And then individuals will have until the following Friday to pay and remove the items that they have won. Seldovia DOT and Cities of Seldovia Partnership for the Seldovia Dust Control Program. We have had some individuals, citizens of the community express concern over the water truck, the city's water truck, going in and out of the road, watering the streets. Tyler has been working on that, and Jordan's has offered, some hours of assistance with that. And we did do a Facebook post, but I also wanted to put it out here to assure everybody that the water being used for the program is being drawn from a runoff source outside of city limits and is not being pulled from the Seldovia water utility. So that dust program is not impacting the city's utility system. Harbor parking discussion is scheduled for June 27th. We were in the process of ordering signage for harbor parking, but we put that on hold. And the notice of the fee area has been provided to the trailers parked at both launch ramps, and those trailers are either being moved regularly, as they have up to 2 weeks to park on those lots at this time, or they are filling out storage agreements with the city to continue to park on those on those lots long term. So we do have a few new storage agreements on the books at the city for that. Dam inspection is scheduled for June 17th or 18th. John Coon's last day was June 6th. He'll be missed. So we now have just Jordan and Johnny Gruber. And we have received one application for the Seldovia Gateway kiosks. And I'll just finish up by saying that I've been talking to Jordan a lot the last couple of weeks. Water usage does remain high. Public Works is aware of 2 water leaks and is awaiting for the arrival of ARWA's Kevin Schoeneman. He was supposed to arrive today. To help really pinpoint one of the leaks and listen for more. Otherwise, the high water usage seems to be related to dry weather, people watering lawns, gardens, and streets. and the active summer tourism business season. So we're definitely seeing it spike in the winter, or in the winter, spike on the weekend, and then it goes down a little bit on the week during the week, and then the weekend spikes again. A lot of water usage happening.
Okay, thank you, Heidi. Anyone have any questions on the manager's report?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah, speaking about our waters, the water, excuse me. We may want to, if this is going to continue to be a dry year, we may just want to put out information for the public about water usage and watering as much and using water, because that's where we got ourselves in a situation last time where we all just kept watering and doing what we normally do and then found ourselves, you know, the rains came a month later. So maybe we want to put out a little bit of PR about water usage and during this dry time. Might just be something we want to make people aware of again. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, thank you, Vivian. Anyone else? Okay, thank you, Heidi, and appreciate you sitting in, obviously, while Rachel was out. Item O, informational items not requiring action, none. Item P, executive session, none. Item Q, council and mayor comments concerning items not on the agenda. Sweat.
Again, I'd like to thank the city for all their hard work. And Heidi, you did a great job while Rachel was out.
Okay, thank you, Rojas.
Yeah, thank you everyone for your hard work. And Heidi, again, thank you for stepping in. You do a great job. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, thank you, Vivian. Kennedy.
I don't have anything this evening.
Okay, thank you. Swick.
No comment.
Peyton.
Thank you for your work in the presentation tonight.
Thank you, Nathan.
And thank you to the staff for their usual good performance. I was in Anchorage not too long ago. I just wanted to say that the grocery store shelves are starting to be thinned a little bit. The Safeway in Homer is short. It's a noticeable bunch of empty shelves. I wonder if it might behoove us to start thinking about the world situation here in Seldovia. I think we're in a good geographic position to deal with these kind of problems. Maybe we should think about a kind of maybe a community garden and perhaps a community-based fishing operation that I'm not saying we need to do anything right now, but maybe make some plans to be able to respond to a shortage of food. I think it's coming. Other than that, got nothing else. Good meeting.
Thank you, George. Appreciate those comments. Same. Appreciate everyone's participation tonight. And then thank you for the staff for putting it all together. Our next meeting will be a regular meeting held on June 27th, 2022 at 6 p.m. Hopefully nothing will present itself before then. And then we'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, any objections? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a
Thank you.
good evening.
You too.